Perfect spiritual reading too, by the way. And I'm really very happy to be here with you this morning. And I always say that. But I always say that, and it's always true. But this morning, this is a good morning, but in a way it's kind of bittersweet. Because, you know, the first time that I had the privilege of being your Sunday morning speaker was in April 1995. It's a couple of years ago, all right? So a couple of years ago. And now it appears that this will be the last time that I get to be your Sunday morning speaker. Well, maybe. Who knows? But this morning I want to share with you a personal story. This is an intense personal story, but it is a story that I need you to hear from me, okay? Not from an old rumor, not from somebody's sketchy memory, not from tired gossip or a half-remembered newspaper article from years and years ago. I want you to hear this from me because it's my story. Only I dare not receive it for myself alone. And so I want to share with you this morning lessons from the dark night. Kabbalah Center teacher Yehuda Ashkenazi shared this quote on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and I looked at it and I thought, wow, that's just perfect. And this quote comes to us from Sufi author Hazrat Inayat Khan. All right, you got that? Hazrat Inayat Khan, and he says, there can be no rebirth without a dark night of the soul, a total annihilation of all that you believed in and thought that you were. And so I want to share with you my own dark night and how I got through it and 2 or 3 of the lessons that I learned. Here's the thing. In August of 2014, and we're just getting started. We're just getting started on this rascal. August 2014. All right, I was arrested by Farmington Police, and I was charged with 4 counts of felony sexual assault. There it is. And if you're sitting there thinking, wait a minute. What? What? Okay. And if you're sitting there thinking, what? Then you know exactly what I was thinking while I was handcuffed in the back of a police car headed for county jail. Wait a minute. What? They think, what? But that's not all. I said, but wait, there's more. You knew that. They said that sexual assault was against my son. Wait a minute. What? See, it made no sense to me. And even now, it's been some years have gone by, but it still seems more like some kind of a crazy dream. You know, that kind of a crazy dream that you have, and you have this creepy, weird, kind of sideways feeling that you just can't shake off. Wait a minute. What? Now, just a couple of days before I was arrested, Rabbi Michael Berg of the Kabbalah Center shared on Facebook, and he said, no matter what the situation, all right, no matter how bad it seems, there's always a thread of light. Always. And that's your first lesson from the dark night. No matter how bad it seems, there's always a thread of light. Now, you may have to look for it, and it may not be obvious, but it's there. There is always a thread of light. And when I was in jail and there was nothing to do and nowhere to go, that's all I could remember. That's all I could hold on to. There's always a thread of light, he said. No matter how bad it seems, there's always a thread of light. Now, I was in jail for 24 hours, and that was plenty. But speaking of threads of light, it's 24 hours before John Bryson got hold of a bail bondsman. And I got out, speaking of threads of light. Now, the bail had been set at $60,000. I was a menace to the community, after all. But I was told later that that was a clerical error, and that the bail was supposed to have been set at $120,000, at which case I would still be there. threads of light. See, they said I was a menace to the community. Wait a minute. What? So, well, you see how I come in here a Sunday morning and menace all of you. You know. And then it didn't take but another couple of minutes and I was fired from my job from the city. This is why I want you to hear it from me. And I had worked there for 16 years as one of the senior managers of the library, and I was planning to retire from that job. I had it all figured out. I was going to retire from that job, and I had the retirement palace all picked out. But they decided that I was guilty of moral turpitude. Wait a minute. Seriously. And that's all they needed to know, apparently, and that was that. And that's how the dark night began. Now, I remember one Saturday night. Two or 3 weeks after I'd been in jail. And I couldn't understand. I just thinking, wait a minute, what? I couldn't understand why would my son and daughter's mom have told the Mesa County Sheriff such a crazy and ludicrous thing. And I couldn't understand why so many of the people that I had worked with day after day, month after month, and year after year, decade ever, I couldn't understand why they would have been so quick to believe that I was going to assault anyone. And I could not understand why so many of the people whom I loved and cared about would just, in an instant, turn their backs on me as if I had never existed. And one night, that Saturday night, the pain and the frustration started to crash in on me, and I started to cry, and then I sobbed because it didn't make sense and I couldn't understand. And I started to scream. No pillow. No pillow. I just started to scream. I threw myself down on the floor and I cried until about 1 o'clock in the morning. I stopped crying because I was exhausted. And I said, wait a minute. I knew what to do. In the moment, it made perfect sense to me. In the moment, it made perfect sense. I said, well, I know what to do. I can fix this. And so I opened all the doors and windows in the house, and I turned on a couple of lights so that it would look like somebody was there. And with all the doors, it's almost funny now, with all the doors and windows open, and a couple of lights turned on so we'd know that somebody was there, I would simply wait for an armed robber to show up. I mean, how complicated is this? I had it all worked out. It was perfectly plain. The armed robber would demand money, and I would refuse. There would be a scuffle. I would be shot, and I would die. What could be easier? Well, we're going to fix this tonight. And so I sat on the sofa, and I waited. A couple of times, I got up, and I went to the door and kind of looked out to see if he was on his way. I did. But no armed robber ever showed up. I mean, where's an armed robber when you need one? And so this sky began to blush with the early dawn of summer, and around 5 o'clock, I gave up. Couldn't find an armed robber. I mean, how complicated should that have been? And I catnapped for an hour, and I got up and I got out of bed to get something to eat, but the food tasted like plaster. And I went back to bed for the remainder of the week. I was unable to sleep, but I was too drowsy to stay awake. I was unable to lie still, but equally unable to move. And I wanted to read, but I couldn't concentrate for more than a few minutes at a time, and reading annoyed me. In the daytime, I was afraid of the daylight because I could see people. But in the night, I was afraid of the dark because I could not see people. Now, lesson from the dark night. Get whatever professional help you need. If you need professional help, get it. Because there's no reason to try and do it all alone. See, I felt like I had been picked up and simply cast into hell. Possibly because I had been picked up and cast into hell. Now, here's the question, and we have to ask the question. Was it hell because I was tormented with fear? Yes. Was it hell because I had been cut off from most of the people I loved? Yes. Was it hell because nothing made any sense and I could not understand? Well, yes. But the real reason, all right, the real reason that it was hell, the real reason that my life had become a living hell was that everything was all about me. All right? It was all about me. It was, my life had turned into all about my court hearings, my defense attorney, my court case, my case number, my charges, my new antidepressants, my pain and my fear and me and some more of me. But wait, there's more. See, I hardly had any people left to share with. Okay, that was hard. I hardly had any people left to love. I hardly had any people left to give to. That's the definition of hell. Okay, never mind what they told you in Sunday school class. That's the definition of hell, because I've been there and I've come back to tell you. But there was a thread of light. Even though I did not understand why I had been charged with crimes. I mean, seriously, what? And even though I could not understand why my son and daughter's mom would have said something so hurtful, I did know that it could not have possibly come from a place of love. Seriously. The Course says it then could have only come from a place of fear. So I organized a small prayer, a very small prayer circle. But I organized a small prayer circle, and so every day we meditated to send unconditional love and healing to my son and daughter's mom. Okay? The thread of light got a little brighter, but the night continued. But at least it was not all about me 24 hours a day. But still the night continued. Now, it's interesting because much later, I found out that about this time she had a complete change of heart and had severed her relationship with the prosecutor. He didn't like that. And she began trying to work with the defense. Now, lessons from the dark night. Prayer works.
Amen.
Okay, there you go. Prayer is real. I've told you before about the Zohar. We've studied the Zohar in Kabbalah class because the Zohar is the big book, it's a real big book too, of Torah-based Kabbalah. And the Zohar shares a parable about prayer. And in the parable, all the prayers of all the people in the world are lined up waiting for their audience with the Creator. It's a long line, It's all long. They're all waiting for their audience with the Creator. But periodically, the angels get one of the prayers from kind of the back of the line, and they rush it all the way to the front of the line. Okay? Those prayers that got bumped to the front of the line were the prayers that came with tears. Okay? Prayers with tears go straight to the front of the line. Lessons from the dark night. Don't be afraid to pour your heart into your prayer. Don't be afraid to weep and cry and scream with or without the pillow. And don't be afraid to be angry with God. If anybody gets it, God does. But we don't understand everything, and a lot of times things just don't make sense. There are reasons. Lessons from the dark side. There are reasons even when we do not see them. So don't be afraid, but look for something to share. In defiance of the dark, look for someone to help. In defiance of the night, look for the thread of light. It's there. Now, go on with the story. A jury trial, as I insisted, we're going to have a jury trial. We're going to the jury on this nonsense. And so a jury trial was scheduled. and then postponed. It was scheduled and postponed. It was scheduled and postponed again. It was scheduled and postponed again. And then my defense attorney would not return my calls. Wait a minute, what? And I started to get conflicting information from his office. Now, in October of 2015, we're going to jump ahead a minute, I got almost 2 years, well over a year after I had been arrested, I got a new attorney. And I want to shout out to him, Mr. Emeterio Rodolfo. He is amazing. A heart this big, and he is amazing, and I love him forever. Office on 20th Street, just 2 blocks east of. No commission, but he's a really, really good guy. And but I am a little ahead of myself. All right, August 2015. A year after my arrest, on a Saturday morning, I get this strange phone call. All right, speaking of threads of light, I get this strange phone call, and the voice said it was John Bryson, but it did not sound like John Bryson. All right? And this voice on the phone informed me that I was going to Fellowship of Spirit the following morning. And I said, yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. And this voice, claiming to be John Bryson, insisted, and I said, I don't know. And John insisted. And there was this little voice that seemed to be in my ear, and in my heart I felt this sense of urgency. And the voice in my ear just said, trust. Just trust. And the feeling in my heart said, this is important. And John said something about picking me up after 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. I heard my voice saying yes. Because the thing of it is, I needed more people to love. I needed more people to share with. I needed more positive people in my life. And I had this amazing idea. I said, hey! I could love them. I could care about them. And if I need more people to share with, well, I bet I could share with them. They're pretty scary, okay? Kind of menacing sometimes. But I think that I shall go and love them. I think I shall do it anyway. Now, lessons from the dark night. God is bigger than whatever the problem appears to be, and God is love. But you knew that was coming. It's not enough to stay at home and meditate on love. It's good. It's a good thing, but it's not enough. You have to go and love somebody. That's kind of the gripe of it, I get it. But you have to go and love somebody, especially when it requires effort and takes you out of your comfort zone. All right, now sometimes people say it was such a perfect spiritual reading from Randy. I guess it's just perfect. So I don't have to do a Sunday message. Now he just did it. But here's the thing. And people ask and say, well, how do you know if it's the voice of just my ego or if it's the voice of the Holy Spirit or the voice of the light? Well, here's one way to know. Here's one way to know. Ego, rule of thumb, ego will never lead you out of your comfort zone. Love will never let you stay inside of it. All right? It's very important. Ego will never lead you out of your comfort zone. But love will never let you stay inside of it. We have to extend ourselves, and we have to give, and we have to love, and we have to share, most especially when it's not convenient. Now, I had become very attached to, this is amazing, but this happened just the way I'm going to tell it. I had become very attached to the story of Joseph in Genesis. You know, the coat of many colors guy? It's Joseph sold into slavery. You remember that? Okay. All right. Now, the story of Joseph had become very encouraging to me because Joseph was a just and upright man. And I'm not sure that I was just and upright, but I was still saying, wait a minute, what? You think what? And so Joseph was a just and upright man, but he was accused of raping his owner's wife, and he was thrown into prison for 22 years. Strange, I've been here for 22 years. But in the right time and in the right way, Joseph was released from prison and was elevated both to influence and to affluence, and later on to reconciliation with his family. Now, I had a private reading with Tricia Dolan, okay? And I just found out that Tricia Dolan is going to be at Whole Expo in September in Durango. She's worth it. She's amazing, all right? So I had this reading with Tricia Dolan in the room back here, and Tricia said these words to me. She said, "There's a very powerful spirit with you. He says his name is Joseph." What? You know, Joseph from the Bible. He's helping you, but he says you already know that. But wait, there's more. In the autumn of 2015, oh my goodness, I was complaining to myself because I wanted to be in Ruth Rosenberg's Monday night Zohar class at the Kabbalah Center in Boca Raton, Florida. I wanted to be in her class. I wanted Ruth Rosenberg's class on Monday night, and I was just not cool that I couldn't have it. Because I had taken classes with her when I was studying with the Kabbalah Center, with Kabbalah University, and I really, really, really love Ruth Rosenberg. And I was griping because I really wanted to be in her class. And I scolded myself and I said, dude, look, Ruth Rosenberg's class is not in Farmington. It's not going to be. Sorry, it's just not. It's just not. So, instead of complaining about what's not here, how about we get excited about what is here? Well, there's a concept, there's a lesson right there. And I said, hey! I could do Course in Miracles on Wednesdays. I used to do Course with Randy and Susan back in the day. I could do it again. I kind of did Course in Miracles anyway. It's challenging, but you know, we need something to be challenged by. We need something to chew on, to really make us think. But here's what happened, okay? Here's what happened. Only one other person knows this until this morning. Started going to Course in Miracles. Well, they all know that. But one Wednesday evening, this happened, all right? This happened. This just happened. One Wednesday evening, I came in and I sat down. I just came in and sat down, you know, and Mike Rose was there, and Mike looked up at me. He says, no context, okay? There is no context, no hello, how you doing? No context was there. Mike looked up at me and looked straight in my eyes, and he quoted Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. And Mike said, it's just like Joseph in the Bible. Wait a minute, what? Though my brethren intended this for ill, yet God intended it for good. And I knew that was the Holy Spirit speaking to me. But I didn't say anything. I just held it in my heart. And then, nearly 2 years, wait a minute, what? 2 years later, Margaret Cheeseborough was visiting me at my house, and I told her what had happened in Course in Miracles. First time I'd ever said it out loud was to Margaret. And Margaret said, wow, that's pretty cool. And it happened again. Wednesday evening, Course in Miracles. I was sitting there, and Margaret walked in and sat down, and Mike looked up. No context, no, hey, how you doing? He just looked up and said, it's just like Joseph in the Bible. What? Though my brethren intended this for good, for ill, yet God intended it for good. All right? And I looked at Margaret, and Margaret looked at me, and I looked at Margaret. You remember? See? And I knew for certain that that was a message from the Holy Spirit. Though my brethren intended this for ill, yet God intended it for good. Lessons from the dark night. Be open to messages. Be open to hear the voice of the Holy Spirit, because the answers are there. The guidance is there. The healing is there. If the answer were not there, we would not have the question. Anyway, with the new attorney, Mr. Rodolfo, a new attorney on board, we found out soon that my son and daughter's mom was trying to help. He visited her in Grand Junction, and she poured out everything to him. She told him she had been mistaken. She said that she had been reactive and hasty. She said, no assault ever occurred. Well, I sat on the dining room floor and cried. And when the case finally came before the judge and jury in April of 2016, after waiting nearly 2 years, the judge dismissed one of the charge and I was acquitted of the others. Okay? Now, lessons from the dark night. Everything on earth has an expiration date. Okay? No exceptions. Everything will end. Often not as fast as we would like, more often sooner than we would like. But everything ends. So when we're going through something we feel like we just can't go on another day, well, just hold on. Just hold on and get some help, if that's what you need to do. But hold on, look for the thread of light, and it will get better. Now, one night, I felt like I just really couldn't go on anymore. So I'd had it, and I was tired, and I was angry, and I was frustrated, and I'd had it, and I'd had it with haven't had it. The money was running out faster than the bills. Now, money was running out. The house was not selling, and I was at the end of my rope, and tired of being at the end of my rope again. And I was sitting on the floor, and I was crying. And I said, I just can't go on. I just can't do this anymore, Holy Spirit. I just can't do it anymore. I can't deal with that. I said, all right, Holy Spirit, I got an idea, because suddenly it was clear to me. Suddenly it was perfectly clear. And I knew exactly what to do. And I said, Holy Spirit, I'm done with this. I'm finished. I'm finished with this. We're not playing this anymore. It's not working. I can't deal with living life at the end of my rope. I can't see the light, not even the thread. And I'm tired, Holy Spirit. I'm done. I'm done with it. And if God won't end this, I'll do it myself. Because it will end one way or another. It will end tonight. I knew what to do. I had kept a bottle of lorazepam. It's a real powerful little sedative. It's a real powerful sedative. Said 20 of those rascals, not a problem. Not a problem. I will end it tonight because the Holy Spirit won't act. And I said, wait a minute. What? We're going to do what? I said, wait a minute. Who's tired? Who's frustrated? God or my ego? Who can't go on? God or my ego? We're saying God can't go on. Who's ready to die? God or my ego? Wait a minute. My ego can't go on. My ego is tired and over it and has no answers. And I said, Holy Spirit, my ego can't go on. Holy Spirit, my ego is tired. My ego can't deal with it anymore. My ego is ready to die. And I said, dear Holy Spirit, I think that's a good idea. I'm kind of digging it. My ego wants to die. It wants to die tonight. Dear Holy Spirit, how about we let that happen? This night, let's let that ego die. After all, it can't go on. That's what it just said. It just told me I can't go on. So, okay, then don't. You don't have to. I'll go on with the Holy Spirit. But the ego will die this night. That was his own idea after all. And I said, dear Holy Spirit, let that ego die tonight so that I can share a still greater light tomorrow. Dear Holy Spirit, this night, let that ego be no more forever. Lessons from the dark night. When you get to a place and you feel like you just can't go on, and there's no hope, no thread of light, and you feel like the only solution is to die, that is a time to rejoice and to be very, very glad. Because that's where you find out, that's the way you find out, this is not you. It's not the real you. It's not the divine part of you. It's not the light within you. It's not the voice of the Holy Spirit. It's the voice of the ego begging to be let go of. And it's okay. It's okay to let go of that ego. Because when it tells you that it wants to die, and the ego says that suicide is the only option left, it's okay to let go of that ego. That's what it's asking for. Please let me go. Please let me go.